Wasted so much time on people who should've just been ignored. If I slow down now, I'll pump the brakes. What was it all for? What was it all for? What was it all for? I'ma make this shit count though.
CFR Network, CFR News, Shalom Balance, good day, good night all. We're back across the pond. Author, lecturer, magi, thinker, all of them good stuff there. I got the sibling, prolific writer of late, the God 720, Keenan Booker. Welcome to the broadcast. What do you do, sibling?
Appreciate it. How you doing, man? How's things going out there, UK?
We out here, man. It's cold. Gregorian New Year. We got the Black Sabbath coming up early February. You know what I mean?
The Black Sabbath. What is that? Hold on.
That's that Wiccan shit, homie.
Oh, what are you talking about? Lupercalia?
Almost. Lupercalia is going to be the 14th. So that the Wiccan thing, they got something. I'm sure it's the Black Sabbath. For the Wiccans and the weirdos, they might be able to correct me, but the 2nd of Feb. That's when it's on and popping, King.
Yeah, okay. Well, the Black Sabbath, I mean, see, when you say Sabbath to me, okay, the Black Sabbath is a witchcraft mock ritual of the Catholic Mass.
Indeed.
Okay. And they mix in a little bit of perversion, blah, blah, blah. Now, what we want to classify as perversion is only sex in its life. But the real reason why human, copulation is so quote unquote taboo is because there's a lot of psychological implications going on. But then at the same time, you're toying around with the face hugger. Okay. Like I got described up in here. So you're in submission to the alien that's in the woman. The uterus is the alien. We talked about that. I don't think I've ever talked about that on your show. But if you pay attention or follow me on my channel, that's been a thing that we went through. And but in reality, what the Sabbath is an invisible, it's a location that only women can attend. Women and white males can go there.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen any other, black males there or any other, race of male at the Sabbath. And what happens at the Sabbath is the ritual of the women becoming witches. This is usually by sacrificing their own child, what we would call in this world the abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And
with more ritual around it.
Right. Well, okay. The Sabbath world is a world that's connected to our world. Okay. Now, this isn't a physical location where I could go there and grab a twig off of a tree and bring it back. Okay, that's not how it works. It's a psychological location that women are open to. Okay, now we have to understand women develop, the embryo, they develop the male and the female. So they have a soul access zone. Okay, this soul access zone, the doorway of that is called the Sabbath. And at the Sabbath, women become witches by certain ritualistic practices. The main one is her sacrificing her own baby, signing the pact with the Dark One, usually getting a crook on her finger or getting something she has to promise after death, maybe a leg or an arm or something like that. And also the osculum infame of the goat, licking a goat's ass, okay, is how they become. Yeah. That's how they become the Dark One. That's how their mind gets wired into witch capability. After this occurs, the devil will most likely give her a familiar. What this familiar is a cat or a dog or a fly or sometimes even a child, or some other type of live being. It could be a rabbit, you know, and these beings are actually demons in the shape of animals. And this
So
connection that
have
the
they?
woman has with this animal realm, now this is just the dark sided. There's also a light side to this. But
721 sec.
regardless, go
One
ahead.
sec. So have they shape shifted into this form, manifested this form, or have they inhabited the form?
That's what that they supposedly shapeshift
Okay.
into the form. Okay. But also I'm not gonna outrule the inhabiting of the
Mm,
form.
mm-hmm,
Okay. We're
mm-hmm.
not gonna outrule that because the data that I'm repeating this stuff from comes from the 1500s. Okay. So in your backyard.
Indeed.
Okay.
Yes.
In the UK, in Europe is where this is going on. So um she can use the animal. Now, this is where it goes into the encyclopedia on the alchemy of women. Because, for instance, a Jenny is a donkey, a Jessica is a spider, a Heather is a flower, a
Mm,
Vanessa is a monarch butterfly. You know, so they have a long list of different animals, I mean, different names that we use as regular girl names that are actually the name of the genus of an animal. So what happens is in their witchcraft power zone, they can jump in and use the eyesight of the animal to see what's going on. Right. Because what do we understand about women? Women, they don't commit crime like men do, right?
mm-hmm.
They don't commit violent crime or usually crime for money. They commit social crimes that will make you act. So socialism is their battlefield. And in order to have a full wrap on what is going on in the social realm, they got to see what you're doing when they're not around. Okay. To have
Mm.
a full intelligence of your social and who you may really be, quote unquote.
The
And this
real
is
you.
where the using of the eyes of the dog or the cat, or using the eyes of a butterfly or a praying mantis or whatever, and they keep it in their home or they keep it around them, assist that line.
Mm.
That's what the Sabbath is. The Sabbath is the testing ground for the devil to test the witch to see how far she'll go as a witch. So this means eating carcasses, doing all types of crazy levels of sex, sex with animals, all types of shit, you know, body parts on the table. You
Mm.
know, they got drawings of this stuff.
Yes.
And yeah, and they're in the book, The Kicked Out of Heaven. Go to kickedoutofheaven.com right now. $50 for the 3-volume series. If you're in Europe or UK, it's gonna cost about $150 on shipping and handling alone.
Exactly. We know the ones. We
Okay.
already know.
And that's
Only the
that's out of my control. Go ahead.
720. Only the diehards who want the physical, and we already know the thing. If it's coming from America or vice versa, it's a lot in regards to the shipping. So don't even trip, mate.
Right. And these are the only ones that you'll get in color. They're the ones that I have right now. And once they're gone, they're gone. The pictures being in color. Okay. So that's what the Sabbath is. I've been to the Sabbath, you know, when I was deep in the bowels of the information. And yeah, it's a real place. It's a real zone where, and then let me also put this in. It is the real zone where all women are connected, regardless of race. And this is where they get their rules, or this is where they get their dogma and their creed to expand the next level of socialism in the world. Okay. So this is where women come, where women get their information to alter the socialism of our world, of our environment, of the real world. This
So
is part of
this,
the reason why women can't sleep at night as well. So when girls start bringing in new words or new styles, you remember like what 10, 20 years ago, girls used to say stuff like, I'm gonna act like I ain't see that. I'm gonna act
yeah,
like I didn't hear that,
yeah,
right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Those are phrases that were told to them at the Sabbath to utilize in this world to alter the existence. You alter the existence by bringing in new words.
So is this done similar to like the mycelium grid, where it's just like a massive connection, and so they're not so much consciously thinking of these ideas that they're going to bring forth, but it's just innately sort of connected, and they just bring forth this kind of idea.
No, it's not. Well, they are innately connected. All uteruses are innately connected, and there's a high level of telepathy. But this occurs as direction and instruction in the Sabbath when they go to sleep. That's why girls can only sleep for maybe 3 to 4 hours. So when women go to sleep, they go into this Sabbath world, and they're given instruction on what to do in this world that will slow down male production and intervene and interrupt male production. You know, see what you do. Oh yeah, I saw that. So what you do as a man is called God's given right or God's given talent. Women interrupt that. The God-fearing woman is going to support your talent.
Yes.
The woman that is not of God is not going to support your talent and is going to interrupt your talent, and it is also going to put you into a drain perspective. So she's going to drain you of your money, drain you of your
Succubus.
time, drain you of your attention, cause headaches. The causing of a headache is a witchcraft. The causing of the snake flipping around in your stomach is a witchcraft. Too much overt thinking about what a female's activity is witchcraft. Too much over, so when the girl says, when you ask your girl, oh, what's wrong? She says nothing. And she throws your head into a whirlwind of what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
That is witchcraft. Okay. So basically, podcasts overall discussing discussing relationship problems, right, is a result. They're all underneath witchcraft and they don't even fucking know it.
Yeah.
Because witchcraft is a system of male versus female,
Hey,
female versus male.
sibling, right?
Yeah.
100% on that. 100% on that. But let me drop one in there now.
Go ahead.
You've got now women who are seeing this is a viable means to, number one, get attention, and number two, to get that coin. So whether I even believe this doctrine, I'm gonna promote this on this damn podcast circuit on the old boob tube because it benefits me. Yeah.
Right. Now there's a whole nother science with the purchasing of the woman and giving her the coin. See, these are the witches which fit into the wife zone. And in the wife zone, they're either going to support your talent and your work, or they're going to be against it. Okay. And they're not even going to show you or tell you that they're against it, but their activity and behavior will be against it. Okay. And that activity and behavior will leave you in a status of confusion, which confusion will not allow you to produce work.
Not produce work and leave you in a chaotic state physically
Right.
and mentally.
And then if this goes on for too long, it's going to impose erectile dysfunction. And then that's where she wins, because that's the witch flying out of the house with the broomstick. She has attained the power of the phallus. The broomstick is a phallic symbol. So and also the long nose of the witch is also considered a phallic symbol as well.
Well, of course.
And that's correlated to the insatiability of animals.
Yes, the broomstick, and then you tie that in with Nimrod's phallus, which is represented in the modern form as the Christmas tree. Yeah, the everlasting tree. So yeah, man. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's what the whole battle, the witchcraft is specifically the sciences of women to incorporate erectile dysfunction on males. That is the bottom line definition of what witchcraft is. So all of this other shit about drinking blood and the left hand path and sitting in the 5-pointed circle, all that shit is bullshit. Right. That's cover up shit. That's not really what's going on. What's really going on?
Could that be the veneer to get them to that stage? Because we talk about what, like Eastern stars, with you talk about different kind of levels of orders before we get to the blatant pagan, black Sabbath, and witchcraft.
Well, all of that is just stuff for humans to do because they're underneath Western culture and they don't know what to do underneath Western culture. So what is Masonry really? Really, all Freemasonry is a small percentage of European culture that developed during the medieval times. They took a percentage of sciences that was in the medieval times because you have to understand that the medieval times, in 1500s, 1700s, they went over there to Maya. They were already standing on top of the Alexander Library. They already had all the scientists from Greece and Rome and Egypt. They already had the Catholicism being built and all the saints from Rome. So, and then they developed medieval saints as well. So they already had the world's intelligence
and knowledge base
during the medieval times, right? So it was chaos with those levels of intelligence. And then they had to create order. The first layer of chaos when it comes to the multitude of different scientists from the rest of the planet being embodied inside of old Europe was the vagabonds. The vagabonds, because the vagabonds, that's where Rothschild and all of them others come from, right? They were extremely poor during the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, right? So what happened was that these vagabond groups, they got highly sophisticated within their areas of being a bum. You've seen many medieval movies where the assassin would dress like the bum.
Yes.
Or, the king would have to dress like a bum to get through the civil,
Yes.
So
to mingle amongst the people, you dress like
without them even knowing that the king was there, right?
Yes.
So the vagabond status, which was repulsive to a lot of the people and the peasants, because a lot of them had leprosy, and leprosy during that time was considered to be, you've been struck by the devil, you've made a deal with the devil, and that's why you're in the status of what you're in.
What form of leprosy are we talking about? We're not talking about the pale skin leprosy, so we're talking about the boils and all that kind of stuff.
Right. I guess both. From when we say leprosy in the medieval times, it was only one. Boils, whatever, skin ruptures, your fingers falling off, your nose fall off, your ears fall off, and then compared with the scientists of today, they aren't able to tell if it was syphilis or if it was leprosy.
This episode is sponsored by CASHAPP of the UK. Click the link in the description and support the broadcast.
So some say it was syphilis, some say it was leprosy. Some say syphilis only got to Europe by Christopher Columbus after he traveled here to Native America. Who knows, But we do know that there is a mass amount of diseases, and leprosy being the most popular one. Is rotted off the fingers, rotted off the nose, decomposed, rotted the skull, would leave your brain exposed. It would eat up the bones and all of this other stuff. And this is the level, and in comparison with the vagabond's dress attire, and we have to conclude that with the monks, who also had a similar attire. And also, even though the monks had a monastery, but when they would travel through, you know what I'm saying? And then you have I'm trying to think of the other guys. I forgot what they were called. They lived in the woods or lived in the fortress of the castle, huh?
Hermits.
Yeah, hermits. There you go. You did it. Yeah, so the hermits. So those three groups were sort of like intermingled with each other. And then you had a lot of high-level scientists that were dropped down and confused within the criminals. So outside of the vagabonds, you had the vagrants, you had the also the highwaymen is what they call them.
Dick Turpin, one of the most famous ones.
Right. The highwaymen were the gangsters at the time period. Indeed. And the highwaymen were connected with the vagabonds and connected through the brothels and things of that nature. Those sciences that they utilized in order to maintain themselves as criminals evolved into all of these different Masonic groups.
Rosicrucians, etc.
So, right, Rosicrucians and all of that other shit. So all of that shit is actually is broken down areas of European culture. That's all it is. It's European culture that we didn't know because we were still doing our thing and, you know, dancing for the sun and shit and dancing for rain and shit. And, you know, that's what we were doing in Africa. That's what we were doing in Native America. We were worshiping the gods and all this other stuff, you know. And that's what they were doing. They were mastering criminal arts and criminal sciences. And they had maps. They would draw certain signs on certain maps. They would loot. They would use symbols at the doorway of places that were already robbed to let you know as another vagabond. So if you saw that sign, don't rob this store. This store has already been robbed, and there's somebody to the left looking at you. You know, if you are to rob it, okay? Like they had a very unique language that was going on, which also evolved into the symbology that we know as Freemasonry and all of that shit. You see?
Sounds about right. It sounds about right. So,
Yeah.
so 20, where have you been able to amass all of this knowledge? Because I've been knowing of your work since like 12, was it? Or 11? Before the author, before Keenan Booker. When
Oh,
you was
right.
just,
Okay.
yeah. So how are you able to amass this high level of information and are able to disseminate it at ease?
Well, first and foremost, the thing here is time. And I don't like bullshit and I don't like bullshitters. And I'm very strict on that. The majority of people around you are bullshitters. They waste time, they do nothing. You know, friends are individuals that you waste time with, or a bum and wait, you know, is what I like to call them. Somebody who sits around till they're fucked up to ask something for you. Okay. And I've seen the ups and downs and the ins and outs. I like nice things. So people usually come around me with their eyes blinking and think they're going to 5-finger discount something and shit like that. And I don't like to having to be looking at people or overthinking about another person.
Yeah,
So I just keep people the fuck away from me.
indeed.
You know, it's real simple, you know, especially dealing out here in America, and you don't know what type of backgrounds people come from. You don't know what you're dealing with, you know. And I was always interested in the subject of torture because I don't like horror movies. But I could tell definitely that through the amount of horror movies that America has produced,
Yeah.
and through the type of stuff that's in the movies, that this was premeditated. They didn't just write this in a script. This comes from somewhere. Okay. So, you know, you've been told about executioners indirectly. Even in some old Disney movies, they talk about it. You know, they'll have an executioner dude or something in a medieval cartoon or something. And I knew to start there. We also heard about the Spanish Inquisition. You know, you burn up your women for 500 years over here. So we had to figure out what the fuck you're talking about, you know, because
the Salem witch trials.
right. Well, now, actually, the Salem witch trials was done in America to close the cap on Europe. The Salem witch trials.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're really looking at it, you're looking at it from 300 to a 500-year loop of what's going on. And how do we develop the new world out of the old world?
Yes.
So in order to do that, we're going to have to close down old world activity.
Indeed.
By specific events
that
give us a wow factor.
Yeah.
Now, we can't do these specific events in the old country because it's still old activity. But we can do these same type of events on a new land.
The new world.
In a new land, in a new location, where people can gasp and act like they're surprised about it, and then respond in an aspect where we can incorporate new law on these situations. So the Salem witch trial is a close up and it's the door shutting on the witch trial realm, in which Americans are going to look at the Salem witch trials, and they're not going to do the research on what was going on in Europe for 500 years.
This is it. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see?
Yeah.
So let's go over a couple of other elements, because that wasn't the only thing. Every major city in America burned down, right? There was a
Around
fire.
the same period.
There was a
Yes.
Chicago fire. There was a
Yeah.
San Francisco fire. There was the whole state of Georgia burned down. Right.
Mm.
So if we look down, what is this element? This element is the continuous fires that happened throughout all of Europe. There was so many fires going on, and fire was so uncontrollable that whenever you look at any medieval painting, you'll see a town burning up in the background.
In the background, a lot of them. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what was another element? How did all the torture disappear? The torture
Well,
disappeared
before
through World War.
2020, before you move on to get to the torture, give me some kind of information reference to this fire business. Why were all those major cities, not just in the New World, but in Europe and in Britain, how were all these major fires taking place? What was going on? Is there some symbology behind
it's
this?
a purification. Fire is purification. That's the phoenix rising out of the ashes.
Okay.
It's a purification. And in Europe, they would just occur because, it was degenerate activity going down, and fires happen. Fires happen when they were cooking. Brothels get burned down. Market gets set on fire. The barns get set on fire. Fires were used heavily with the marauders taking over a neighboring city, one throne taking over another throne next to them, all that type of stuff. Fires were being used. Fire was a very repetitively used weapon during the courses of war, and it was done in a lot of different ways too. Fire would be set on barn rolls and rolled down the hill into the city.
Yes.
That was one way of doing it. Another way of doing it was like the Vikings did it, was putting fire on the feet of birds, and they would land on the trees, and then set the tree on fire. Then the neighborhood goes and things of that nature. So, and then fire was always used for the tongs during the course of torture. The smelting of metal, as
Branding.
the metalsmiths, blacksmiths, goldsmiths. So fire was a very normalized thing, but it does get out of hand. And it was so common that places like France mandated that it was part of the prostitute's duty to put out fires if one was to occur in the city, because the prostitutes were taken care of by the government, and they would have to, that was a part of their responsibilities.
Were we talking about 16th century, 1700s?
Yeah, 1600s, 1700s. Yeah.
And I guess the reverence to fire as well. Fire, some of the European cultures, fire. Some of the Norse gods had a fire element to them in regards to the reverence and how they worshipped they burned the effigies and have the boats. A lot of the Slavic nations
the Wicker
today.
Man.
Yeah.
So fire was a great thing, because when we understand the caveman perspective of it, fire made life a little bit more easier. Once there was a discovery of it. And that discovery of fire by the caveman was most likely lightning hitting a tree. So that was probably the first fallen angel, quote unquote, and was probably the first recognition and creation of the god Odin out of that, because Odin rules over lightning, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it goes back like that. And then we were able to forge weapons out of fire, and the Orientals are the ones that mastered that practice and gave the science to Europeans, and before you know it, the pistol came along. Gunpowder, the Moors introduced gunpowder, and yeah, so it goes on and on and on and on.
And that would have been the Renaissance period.
Yeah, and then you have torture was shut down by World War One. That's why you never hear anything about World War One. World War One was the last phase of all countries utilizing forms of torture on enemies. And it got so brutal with the beheadings and mass beheadings and mass hangings and things of that nature, disembowelments and being quartered. And it's a messy process too. When you study torture, torture takes hours and hours to do. So like even being hanged, drawn, and quartered, to quarter a man by 4 horses, that takes like a 4-6 hour process. Yeah, they got to constantly whip the horses so they could so the horses could stretch the ligaments. And sometimes if the legs or arms didn't rip off, the executioner would just come through and finish it with the last hack on the legs or the arms and whatnot.
And look, the psyche for these executioners, 720.
Well, I'm glad you went there, because what a lot of people don't understand about this time period is that humans were closer to nature. So we understood farms. We had to chase chickens every day, headless chickens. We had to butcher pigs. We're butchering cows. And then when we go out into nature and sit and watch nature, we watch the big snake take down a gazelle. We watch the lion chase. We watch the wolf chase the sheep and rip the guts out while the sheep is still sitting there breathing, watching his guts get ripped
and
out
kicking.
of him. So, right. So you see what I'm saying? So we understood through repetitive viewing of this that this is what this world is. Okay.
Life
That's
and
all
death.
there is to it. Right. This is what this world is. You attack, you hunt, you slaughter, and then through executioner practices and whatnot, we began to understand the psychological implications through a lot of different tortures and the way you can make a man or make a human after certain forms of torture,
That's mad. Yeah, that is
Well,
mad. So as
those
you
sciences were mastered before they picked up the African slaves. That's why they did all of that stuff. Yeah, exactly. They mastered those practices amongst their own for hundreds, thousands of years.
Yes.
Because if you really want to go down to it, slavery goes all the way back down to Greece with Europeans.
Oh, yeah.
And in Greece, their slaves were naked running around.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We can look at the myths and legends and some of those writings and see exactly what that culture was getting up to. We can most definitely see that. We can definitely understand and overstand that the word slave comes from Slav, those people, and then we've got different forms of slavery, servitude slavery, chattel slavery, like, take your pick.
Right. And those Slavs were actually Moors. And that's the Slavonic region is southern Germany. And that's where the Moors were located, bro. That's how they shifted that term Slav into slave, was stemming from a Slavonic Moorish family that actually they're called the Pappenheimers. And they were yeah, bro, look it up. And they got hit with a witchcraft trial too. And they were considered to be vagabonds that were robbing people in the neighborhood and whatnot. And they got hung, drawn, and quartered, disemboweled, and all of that. Yeah, underneath the name Pappenheimer, I think it is. And that could be where also the name Oppenheimer stems from.
Oppenheimer, yes. Okay, so that ties in with all the coat of arms, especially in the Slavic southern German region. We can go up to Slovenia. We can go to Bratislava. The Moorish heraldry, Hungary, exactly. The heraldry. Right, we can't go anywhere within Europe and not see a remnants of the Moorish Empire. It's now okay. So from your research, actually, let me preface this by saying, from what I understand, the Moors weren't a specific ethnic group per se. So there wasn't all of one stock. These were groups, collective groups of many different types of brown people.
Right. So Europeans call black people Moors, like black people in America call white people the white man.
Mm.
That's not necessarily who they are. They're Italian, French, Scottish, Irish, and all of these
Yes.
other different groups, but we just call them all white.
Lump them into that one
Right.
bracket.
And in Europe, the Europeans called all the blacks Moors.
Moors, yes.
Right. Now, some say that comes from Mauritania. Some say it comes from Morocco. Who knows? But there was other titles being used. Saracen is one of them.
Yes.
Yeah, Saracen is one of them. Blackamoor was another one that stemmed over time.
Tawny Moor.
Huh?
The Tawny Moor.
Yeah, the Tawny, right, or being swarthy.
Yes.
Which is how they define the gypsies. Is by having swarthy skin.
Mm-hmm.
Gypsy still to this day in Europe has a bad connotation to it. But
You know it, man. They're the the vandals and criminals of Europe. You don't want to have that Roma gypsy kind of title or any kind of titlage on you because you're not seen as a legit European, quote unquote.
right, but see, that's what I was talking about earlier with the vagabonds and the highwaymen. The gypsies were involved in all of that too. So and one of the thing gypsies is supposedly because they come from Egypt.
Egypt. That's exactly where I was just about to go, sibling.
Right, but we don't know where they come from, and their language is not connected to any other language.